So I do apologise for anyone waiting for the XW restoration to go ahead. I'm still waiting on a few parts, and I'm sort of a bit annoyed with it because a lot of parts I've bought for it, they're not fitting very well. So I've got to wait for a few more parts before I can steam ahead with it. Fairly quickly pulling this thing down, you've just got to drop the engine out. Having a bit of trouble getting that drive shaft out on this side. These things are actually, look, I'm no engineer, and I'm just going to comment on the strength of it. I think they're absolutely incredible. Big box section framework. They've got the little creases here. I assume they're crumple zones for the front. And don't forget, with the thickness of the metal, it's not to do with the thickness, it's also the shape of it, how it's constructed. Now, these cars are very flimsy in terms of panel thickness and this sort of stuff, but the sort of substructure seems really, really good. They're all sort of boxed up around here and down here, obviously in the A-pillar. And even the side, where they have these great big sort of braces installed in them, and there's of course another bar that goes right across the top, which I've taken out and sitting up there over there vertically. I'm going to take everything out of this car, all the wiring, and there's of course the SRS for the safety for the seatbelts. So we're going very, very quickly with it really. And we've got another donor car with a nice big can opener mark at the bottom of it. A young lady apparently reversed next to a steel structure that held a retaining wall up and opened it up like a can opener. You can see along there it's pretty knackered. I can use our door, and I'm going to retrofit this with all the 98 stuff. But I think what we need to do with this one first, apparently it's fairly tired. We've got 280,000 Ks on it. It's been a very good car to its previous owner. I bought it from a fellow school teacher, but you can see, you know, it's been around the block a bit. The foam's all gone in the seat. That doesn't matter because we can use ours. Apparently this thing cooks though, it overheats, which doesn't really matter. It runs sweetly, almost 300,000 Ks, and it's still running very, very well. I'm a bit dubious about the head gasket problem though. These things are known for fan switches which sit down under there and they overheat that way. So I'm going to let it run and just see if those fans kick in. But they're a sweet little car, so I'm going to look forward to doing this one up. Great side project for the XW. And that's this little guy here. Hello Alana. I'm just putting these quarter windows in at the moment. It's being a bit challenging. And Alana's having... Oh, I'm going to have one of those now. Is that a... Yep, that's a split. Yep. I'm impressed. Nice?
Yep.
Beautiful. Now these are great cars for young ones to cut their teeth on car restoration with, because you only really need a cheap socket set and a screwdriver set. You can blow the whole thing apart. Right, so there's just the two mounts left. I've undone the rear mount on the engine. There's just this one here at the front of the gearbox, and there's one at the front of the engine over there near the shocker tower, and that can come out. I'm taking it out through... Actually, I'm going to lift it out. And I'm having trouble getting that drive shaft out, which is being a real pain in the neck, so I've sort of left that in. But as you can see, the whole thing has been absolutely gutted. I've even taken the sound insulation out. Just everything I can take out of it that I can possibly reuse, I have. And I've got 3 containers full of fasteners and bags and all sorts of stuff, and they're all tagged for your engine mount, this one. So what I'll do is I'll arrange these in sort of engine bay, body, front, you know, that sort of stuff. So when I reassemble the thing, it'll just be like a giant Meccano set. This is the absolute wrong way of getting an engine out of one of these things, but I cut the top support. I couldn't get this drive shaft out, and rather than toil away with it on the ground, I just thought I'd just pull the engine out like this and get the drive shaft out on the ground. I think you get the engines in and out from underneath on these things, I'm not sure. Couldn't get it out. You can get these out on a hoist pretty easily, but on the ground's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it is.
It'll flick out with a screw. I've got the other side out. Alright. Tell you what, it doesn't weigh a damn thing. I'm used to picking up big blocks with this engine crate. Look at it, it's a little puppy, it's a little baby. At 1.3, there's motorbikes with bigger engines than these. Alright, well I'll stick it on the ground, I'll pop that shaft out. Well, there's a little 4EFE. This engine will have minimal wear on it. I only did 50,000 Ks on it when it was new, and Mother did, I think, 100,000. So it had 152,000 or something on it. So it's a very good engine. Compressions are brilliant. So we'll use that motor. What did you take off? Oh, cool. The surround, yeah, it's clipped to the bottom. That's what I said. Yeah. Our other one's got a seatbelt warning here. So that's just a blank that comes out and the little lens goes in there. Let's take the glove box out. No, you can. 2 screws there. 1, 2, 3, sorry. And there's a big screw there and another one on.
Yep, I've got that.
The other side.
Let me take the radio out.
Leave that for now.
Oh.
He's done a good job, this kid. He has...
I'm not a kid.
This fully grown 36-year-old man has taken these 2 front seats out and he's taken the dash, starting to take the dash out. He's taken the bumper off, just showing him what to do very, very loosely, but he's done such a good job and he's done it really, really quickly. This has got... That gator is knackered. Oh, yeah? Look. Oh, I mean, gee. And so the gator comes off, which is cool. Don't laugh at me. That's cool. Check this one out. Oh, check the Falcon. The Falcon's feeling a little bit deserted now, but we will get back to it. I'm just going to make a bit of room in here. It's looking pretty good, isn't it? Beg pardon?
Like a middle child.
You've always had middle children syndrome. This thing here, going to take all those lines out down there, is absolutely empty. There's Zippo and even the headline is gone. Interestingly, Toyota fitted bolts up here to this support here, but I think they bolted it then welded it. I'm not really sure why it's like that, but it's still too complicated taking that turret out. I sort of reassessed what I was doing. I'm about to start cutting this rear quarter off here, which means drilling all down these spot welds. Got to pop that window out and drill all along there. I want that for the other car because it's in absolutely immaculate condition. Rear suspension's all out too. About the only job we've got to do up underneath now is take out the fuel tank. So there's the rear axle there. And again, most people wouldn't even bother keeping this sort of stuff. We're going to clean it up and put it in the other car because don't forget this is newer than the old car. Than the other car, and also it's done less than half the mileage. So I'll overhaul this. I'll put some new shoes in it, but I don't think it needs wheel bearings or anything at all. It drove really, really well.
It won't come out, no.
I mean, there's no such thing as won't.
No, this is too big.
That's... You had it on the wrong angle. There was a funny angle here. You do it now.
Want to take the steering wheel up?
Right, but this is the last time this little car is going to run. I'm just checking out the air conditioning compressor. It's in very, very good condition down there. I might use it on the other car. And I've started to drill out these spot welds. I'm going to cut this up here and cut it over there. I'll replace that tape into a better spot. And this rear quarter here is in immaculate condition. We can use that. And the other thing that's very good is I need to brush up on my welding skills, and this is very thin. It's probably only about 0.6 or 0.8 sheet, and we have to butt weld it across here and also plug weld it all down here and underneath and all the rest of it. So this is a great car to cut our teeth with welding when we take on more expensive stuff like this one. I've been relying on friends to help me with welding for a long time now. I'm going to do my own. I'm going to teach Charlie as well. He can learn to do it too, and he can sort of do some work on this one too. He can be the one that pulls it apart. Now these aren't sought after cars. They're very, very reasonable to buy. This one was $470, and it's a great way to get into the project or to the practice of car restoration. So if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world, but certainly on these things parts are very, very expensive. It's all covered up at the moment. The other thing I've taken off, of course, the gear shift mount, if you like, and this front console mount. These are different on the 98 car. They mounted there on the tunnel because that's where the airbag module mounts and all that sort of stuff. We're going to retrofit that with seatbelt pretensions and airbags and all sorts of stuff. It's a sweet little run of this thing. It's 280,000 Ks and it runs like a little clock. Just doing a couple of little tests on it. Just checking things like the integrity of the alternator and regulator. 1399, 14.2 or so would be better. It's not bad though. Now one of the problems with this car is it was overheating, and I can't get it to overheat, but I've noticed down there on the gearbox there's a coolant leak. and it's coming from up on this hose here, this sort of bypass hose down there. There's a leak down there, and also the fans aren't coming on, and the fan switch is this one down here, and they're about $80 new. I got a second hand one for the other car years ago and it's been good, but I've known them to fail as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with this engine, but there could well be. It was diagnosed as having a possible head gasket issue, but I can't get it to fault. The top tank in the radiator's been weeping as well, so the radiator's buggered. It's also full of scaly stuff in the top hose. That hasn't been replaced in years and years. It's all crusty in there, so it looks like its cooling system needs looking at. And the other thing, the coolant's low, so whether the engine's been burning that I'm not sure, but if it was burning it shouldn't have a pool of coolant down there. Now in these cars, the body sheet metal is 1mm thick, and you've got to be careful if you're welding a patch in anywhere down the bottom or whatever. Very, very easy to get too much heat into the panel and warp and twist it and so forth. Now the problem I've got with this, or the problem we have with this, it's not just mine, it's Charlie's as well, is this is much, much thinner sheet metal. And if you look at the profile of it, there's triple skin there. The inner, or the middle one is a good millimetre thick. The inner and outer ones are thinner. And the outer one only looks to be 0.6 or 0.8. Now, the other one, of course, is opened up like a can opener all along here. Now, if I go to weld that in, and don't forget it's also got a buckle up here as well, if I go to cut it up here and put it in, it's going to ripple everywhere. And I'm not going to be able to weld that properly. So it's easier to just sort of stitch it along here and the back. We're not touching the structure, we're only touching the skin here, so it doesn't really matter. Plug weld it all along here where I've drilled those rivets out. And that way I'm keeping a welder all the way from this really thin sheet metal, which is going to be inclined to warp. So that's the reason I'm sort of cutting it down here along the B pillar and along the C pillar, just on the outside. We're not touching structure, don't forget. And that way I can sort of plug weld it in and keep this straight, because I've got no hope whatsoever of doing the other one. Now originally I thought I could just cut a piece out and put it in, and that's doable, but I have that great big buckle here, and it's just going to be a nightmare to fix. It's going to be far easier, more economical to replace the whole rear quarter. Yum, love a cup of tea. These are always a good thing to keep. This is in good condition, good catalytic converter. It's got the O2 set here. I'll take that off before I store it. Now what surprises me a bit about this, you can see how good condition that tank is. This is the tank out of the 98 model, and it is actually different. The mountings and everything look the same, but all the part here where the sender and the fuel pump is different to the other car. And don't forget I'm changing the wiring loom as well. And you can see there, that's an oval one. So the 96, 97 probably uses a different unit there. I've severed these lines. I'm not keeping these lines, I'm using the other ones. So virtually the car will be 98 in a 96 shell. But I have to take this tank out. Now I couldn't siphon using a squeeze type siphon or a jiggler or a normal hose. I couldn't siphon out of here. It's 3/4 full. It's got a lot of petrol in it. And I also couldn't siphon out of here. I've just got a rag sitting in there at the moment. But I'm using the other petrol tank because the wiring loom's different. Also it's in better condition. These are the struts off the old car. I've put those back in temporarily because I'm going to put the rear axle from the other car in as well. I've taken that out. So I've got all this release. It's just held in by 4 bolts, one at each corner. And I'll unclip those lines there. Again, I'm not using them either. I've got the other ones hanging up. So handbrake's released, all off, the rear axle's out, so that tank is ready to drop. As far as this little car is concerned, I've been using panels off the other car. I had to take the other guard off to put this door on. I wanted to change this door because the other one was so badly damaged. And that way, by setting up all these gaps around it, and I put the other guard on after, I can see when I set this one up, and I'm going to cut it roughly in that area there, but I can see that that's perfect, and I can fit up the other rear quarter accordingly off that gap there, and also off the tailgate gap. This line roughly maps out the B pillar where it is. And also we've got sort of numbers around here, and that signifies the depth under the skin before I hit structure. So it's only 2.4 mil clearance between the back of the skin and where the structure begins, and it sort of ramps down to 6. And at the back there we've got sort of 4 millimeters, 8 millimeters, and it goes down to about 60. I'm going to cut this off in pieces to give me a nice big window. I'll cut one out here and take it off in little bits and pieces so that I can really be careful when I drill out the spot welds that don't go through, and I can sort of take it off very, very gently. There's the results of a compression test I did on the motor, all between 195 and 210, which means it's absolutely brilliant. And the oil's in really, really good condition. The compression's really good, and of course the thing was leaking coolant down there. You can still see a bit of it down there. So it has got a bypass hose issue. So Charlie's been pulling all this apart. It's experience for him. But all things considered, I thought I paid too much for this car at $470, but it actually looks like it was a pretty good buy. I sort of took the whole other one out. There's the gearbox there. As a unit out of the car. But of course I cut this because it was damaged on the other car. So this is a bit of an ass about way of doing it. Normally you have a brace that goes between each sort of strut tab, if you like, or just a bit further down, that holds the back of the engine up there. I'll just put a jack under there, rope this up, and I'll leave that out too. Oh shit. There's our little Fred Flintstone engine bay, very, very empty. Just want to go on to this sort of thing. You can see here where it's all corroded away, and that's what happens if you don't really look after your cooling system. You can see there it's all sort of started going. Those hoses I had to cut off, I couldn't just pull them off. And if you compare that to the ones off the other car, and the other car had done 150 odd thousand Ks, and they're absolutely perfect. Those hoses just pulled straight off. Coolant was nice and red, the overflow bottle was clean, just flushed it out with water and it was crystal clear again, whereas this had a lot of sediment. So very, very worthwhile activity when you service your car to change your coolant every 40,000 Ks. That's what Toyota recommended. It's a lovely red coolant. It comes in a small bottle, a small concentrate, and you just mix it with regular water, and it really does do the world for your cooling system. Pardon me, waiting on Charlie. We've taken the dash and all that sort of stuff out. He's going to take the heater box and the air conditioning, everything out there. One thing I want to take out now is the headlining. This is a very, very good headlining in this car. It's different from the later model one in that it's a different colour and different pattern. And if you're ever going to tackle a job like this, you have to start by undoing it at the back. You always start at the rear and work your way forward. Just clipped over underneath the boot seal on there like that, and just release it. 2 clips behind here on the C-pillars. And you just unhook the bows right to the front, and there's a trim at the front that releases it. There's 5 screws going up into one of the turret braces. We've sort of dropped the headlining. We've just got these little bows now, which is sort of fitted in the top here. Oh yeah, we can roll it around. There's 2 little keepers up there too, which, there we go. Now you have to take the windlacing off around the windows, because they're trapped under there, and so this is going to be an easy one. You just flick it out like that and let it drop down. Beautiful. Oh, where Charlie is, he's supposed to be out here. Well, we don't want to tear that, which I think we just did. Just release it from there carefully. This stuff stretches too, you've got to be really... And so we've got it sort of sitting down, and just at the front here, there's about 5 screws just along there. 3, 4. There's 4 screws holding that strip on it that comes off. You can fold it up and put it away. Store it safely. But not just that, I'm less inclined to slip and cut it when I cut the windows out. Now, because I'm retrofitting this car with all the modern stuff, there's quite a few significant differences in the 2 body shells, or at least in the way they're sort of prepared. And one of them is this hole here, and that's where the main loom goes through from the engine bay into the car. Your engine loom goes through here, the vehicle loom goes through there. Now on the later model, there's no hole there, but there's 2 on the A-pillars where the looms go. And you can see there's a circular mark where it hasn't been pressed out here. and the two looms go through here, and the same on the other side. There are two holes there on the earlier car, but they're much smaller, and they've just got things like rear washer hoses and stuff going through them. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but I want to organise a bit of steering gear before I forget how everything went and some of the finer details. This is the steering column out of the later car, and I put this bar in out of the later car. If you remember, I said before it had a rise. The early one had a rise over there near the glove box. All the mountings are different, and all the mountings are different, and the other thing that's different is the carrier for the brake pedal. And I don't know why that's the case. It doesn't make much sense, but I'm just going to stick this in. I'll show you what I'm talking about in a minute. I'll bring the camera over here, but these are the two brake pedals. They look very similar, but this one's got a heap of offset. The later one has a heap of offset because it mounts here, there instead of over here. And I don't know what the difference is because the column's not in the way, but I just want to sort of do this up for now, and then I'm going to be in better shape to sort of understand. Well, the towie's due any minute to pick this thing up now. We're finally finished with it. It's loaded with rubbish, and also a few bits and pieces that are pretty good in there. I'm sort of hoping the wrecker that it's going to is going to swap a couple of bits for the bits that are in there now. It's sort of tried to leave a little bit of meat on the bone for them, but there's not much. There's not really much there. It's sort of fortuitous about the other car and this one. They were both taken off the road on the same day, and there's going to be very, very few parts left between the two when it's finished, because whatever was good on this car has been kept, and whatever was good on the other one's been kept. There's not going to be much left over. So in a few minutes, the towie's coming. I'll just give it a bit of a push, get it ready down the driveway. It's not terribly heavy. There's a 6-cylinder engine sitting in there where the driver usually sits, but there we go. Hope it stops. And off she goes. Do all the inside and the spare wheel and everything. Don't have to do the roof. Well, there it is there. A very good way of keeping a teenage kid busy. We've given this thing a good bath. It is absolutely lovely. As I said before, we've kept on, we've left the a passenger door on, also the tailgate, just so we can set up gaps when we change that rear quarter over. But you can see the state of this shell is absolutely lovely. And it's really come up a treat. So we've now got a lovely blank canvas to build our car, and my son doesn't like being filmed that much. There's a bit of gunky stuff around there. I've got to clean out there with a bit of solvent, wax and grease remover, but we'll let it dry first. But I've left him to his own devices, and he doesn't like being filmed much, which is why I'm sort of just been concentrating on the bits that I've done. Even down in the plenum, not a hint of rust or muck anywhere. Really, really good. In the fuel tank, a little bit of a bath as well. And there we are, all back to bed now, completely stripped, apart from a couple of little plastic trims. So before we paint the interior, that's all going to have to be taken out. The next video really is going to have to be about this Ford here. I'm overdue to do some work on it. I hope you've enjoyed this for now, and take care. I'll see you later. Bye bye.